Do you speak crowdlending? Welcome to our podcast covering the crowdlending industry. Our mission is to provide you with all the insights from this market and help you make informed decisions. I'm Gassan, co-founder and CEO of Acredius. We are a crowdlending platform based in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm delighted to host this podcast and hopefully bring value to all our listeners. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Do You Speak Crowdlending. I'm glad today to welcome to our podcast Gregor Stadelmann, CEO at IT Group. Gregor, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Excellent. So Gregor, please tell us more about yourself and then IT Group.
Yeah, it's very, very straightforward. So I was born in Wettingen. It's near Baden, and that's more or less the area where I grew up, and also met my co-founders. So all of us, more or less, we went to Kantonsschule Baden where we met. But then how it is, life splits you up a little bit. So one guy studied computer science, one guy studied law, and two of us studied business administration. Mm-hmm. And all of us started in their professional life, but still we had this close contact. So usually on like once a month we did something together. So even more from our old class. And in 2015 I discovered a little bit marketplace lending. And then I was telling them, hey guys, you should have a look at this. It's really cool. It's also a little bit gamification, and all of us are a little bit interested in investing and also the stock market, so to speak. So it was very obvious that I was able to pull them in marketplace lending. And then it was Sunday we had brunch in Baden, and there more or less the idea was born, because I said, hey guys, we all work so much, so it cannot be that we are building up these huge Excel sheets again, and to manage these investments and so on. We have to automate everything. And this was a little bit more or less the idea when I2 was born, really providing professional investors access to marketplace lending without the headache. You don't have to do the work. Either you buy the software from us, or we even provide you the investment opportunities, or tell you where you can buy these investment opportunities.
Very interesting. It's a very nice story. So you grew up together, and then at the end of the day you started business together.
Yeah.
Excellent. So tell me more about I2 Invest. What are the current projects, the future projects? I heard some news.
We had quite good news last days. So we announced our fundraising round. Yes. We have really good investors who join us, and I'm also really happy that Chris Böttger joined the board of directors. I'm very proud that we accomplished to get him in our team because he built up a private investment company, Akina, which was sold to Unigestion in 2017, and he made it really from zero to 2.8 billion, I think, US dollar. So I'm really, really happy to have him on board and this expertise. And so we made this in this fundraising round, and now we have two projects coming up. One project is really a fund which will invest in SME loans, primarily in Switzerland, Austria, Germany, and Liechtenstein. So I'm really happy about that. It's in combination with a Liechtenstein asset manager, and there we will provide just software and help them to operate everything. But this is really a project which I'm really proud of, because we are able to give something back to the domestic business environment and providing finance to SME loans here. And the second is also a fund which will primarily invest in asset-backed loans, for example, car loans, which will also be a very interesting project. And so the funds were more or less raised to provide the means for the growth.
Interesting. So you've been doing actually marketplace lending or crowd lending since now a couple of years. I'm really interested to know from, let's say, from an investor perspective or lender perspective, what are the learnings you had between these different verticals, let's say consumer, SME, real estate, marketplace lending?
So the most interesting thing is that it's really different. So for example, some loan originator, they are really good at providing loans to SME, but they're very bad in consumer loans. And the other, they have a very good underwriting for consumer loans, but on the other hand, are very weak with business loans. So this was really astonishing for me. And sometimes we really think that sometimes some loan originator, they should have a niche where they're really strong and really understand the business model. But I mean, it's a little bit obvious because banks also tend to do that. So they tend to have some expertise, and there you really see that they have a stronger performance. What was also is a little bit astonishing, but I always was a little bit for this opinion. Real estate, it can be very attractive because if you put in like mezzanine loans and stuff like that, you're able to have a little bit higher interest, and you're also asset backed. But this crisis will show how good these models really are, because we already see now that with some real estate, for example, which is a little bit, I say it's for tourism or stuff like that, or apartments which were built for Airbnb and stuff, of course they now have problems, and so we now will really see how good the loan originator are in estimating the value of this property, because usually you have a loan to value like 60-70% in most cases, and now we will see if this really works. If we are good at doing everything, there is no need to stick to something, but at least one thing you should do really good. So yeah, I rather have a loan originator which is really good at one thing and really delivering value. I mean, at the end for us, we do not. I mean, this is perhaps a little bit the problem about us in comparison to an old school bank. More or less, we care about the numbers. So, what is your expected default risk rate? What is the rate of return? And does that what you say in the end really comes out in our data? And if you can, let's say, deliver what you promised, we will help you to increase the volumes. If it's the other way around, we will decrease. It's a very simple game.
Interesting. You spoke a little bit about the current crisis, so I'll give some perspective here. We are August 28th, 2020. And actually, Corona, now we're speaking about second wave, third wave, a little bit everywhere. So how do you think this current crisis is affecting the crowdlending industry or marketplace lending industry in general?
I mean, so it's let's look at SME loans. I mean, the banks had now a revival, of course, because I mean, for them it was like printing free money, giving out these loans with state guarantee. I mean, what better can happen to you? I mean, this is like 2 times Christmas and Easter and birthday together. So we saw that some loan originator really decreased like their underwriting of 90% or even 95%. But in the long term, I think it will bounce back. But of course, this crisis now, what will happen? The guys or loan originator or even marketplaces who, were driving a little bit on the limits, we already saw that. So we saw that who was really did not have a lot of reserves, and so I think it became really obvious for us where we would like to invest even more in the future. And for us, it was the perfect scenario, to be honest.
Great, that's great. So speaking about this asset class, and we compare it quite often with other asset classes.
Yeah.
What are the main advantages from a lender perspective, because you are on it and you are, and the I2 group is actually lending to different originators. So why are you interested in this, and what are the main advantages of this asset class?
I mean, this is a little bit like to ask the cook if the meal is good, you know. So, I mean, of course, I will try to sell it, but what is really obvious is this correlation, which is not very. There's nearly no correlation to other asset classes, and I think even after all this crisis, marketplace lending will have a very good rate of return, and people will be interested because it's less volatile. So, of course, I would not recommend to any investor to put like 50% of his portfolio in marketplace lending, but why not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%? Because in fixed income, to be really honest, let's not look at these crazy days in March or April where you were able to buy some interesting stuff, but in general, fixed income is dead, and you need a replacement for that. I mean, there's no other way around. And we saw that we are in talks with so many asset manager. There's an interest in this kind of opportunities, especially if you can provide a track record like we can. So we have it 18, 19, and soon we will also have 2020. And if you can show that you are able to provide constant returns, it's interesting for everybody because you need to replace fixed income.
So you are saying that this asset class is getting more and more interesting to institutional investors?
Of course. I mean, there's also another thing. On the one hand, people need to replace fixed income, but on the other hand, banks, they are moving out of lending. So what they want to lend is they want to just lend to A borrowers, the best of the best, and even for the best, they would like to have collateral, as many real estate as possible. But the demand for credit does not go away just because the big banks or even the mid-size and smaller banks are not providing it anymore. So somebody has to jump in. And on the other side, you have all this cash laying around, maybe with negative interest rates, and where do you want to put it? So you need to put it somewhere. So you have to have diversification, and I think marketplace lending is a really good place to have this diversification.
But the majority, I think, of our listeners are also private lenders or retail investors that are interested in this asset class. What would you advise to them? What would you recommend to them if they want to start with this crowd lending?
Also, what I would really recommend is make a due diligence about the marketplace. I think this is very important. Invest some time, and then also have diversification. I mean, and I understand for retail investor, it's sometimes a hassle to have, like, let's say 3-4 marketplaces. But I would really recommend it because let's be honest, we're still a very young industry, and most of the marketplaces are young. And there is some opportunity possibility that some of them are not there anymore in 5 years. I mean, this is probably less the case in Switzerland, but if you look at Europe, this will happen. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Gregor, for these insights. And now we are interested in something that is even more serious than what you told us. Yeah. And we want to know, actually, what's your favorite fruit?
So it is actually bananas. So I eat that the most, but at the moment I eat a lot of pear because, my grandfather, we have all these old trees, and at the moment there is all these fruits, so apple and pears. And my aunt, they just always put this basket, give me this basket, and I need to use it. So usually now every day I have 1 or 2 at least, because otherwise I have a problem. So that's what
sacrifice thing.
Yeah. So also diversification is also there, you see.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Gregor. Anything else you want to add on that subject?
Not on that subject, but I would like to thank you in the name of I think all of these people who look this podcast and also marketplace lending in Switzerland, I think it's really great that you do that. I mean, it's a lot of time and a lot of investment to provide these podcasts and deal with all the people, invite them. But I think it's really important that we spread the message about marketplace lending. And there's a very valuable groundwork which you do with this podcast and your company. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Gregor. Appreciate it. And maybe I add to this. I mean, Corona is not helping, so we are doing this podcast now via Zoom. So you might hear some notifications of things around. We are sorry for that, for the technical capabilities so far. And yeah, thank you very much, Gregor. Thank you all for listening to us, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Have a nice evening.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for staying with us until the end. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media so you never miss an episode. Please don't hesitate to send us your questions and comments at egregious.ch. Thank you.